Men's national team coach Mauricio Pochettino says he has no need to call all these players. Who's in, who's out, does not matter. He called his players, and there's the team. That's in response to a journalist asking, why did so-and-so not make the team, or why didn't he? A
Yeah.
6-minute response is what they got.
Yeah, look, we're going to talk about that here in a second. I do want to acknowledge the team that he actually called in. You've seen a lot of analysis. I'm trying to work up some thoughts of my own over at the newsletter, Jason Davis Soccer Eagle. If you are a subscriber to that, thank you very much. If you're not, what the hell are you doing? It's my birthday, God damn it! I would say there's a couple of things in here, Rob, that kind of catch your notice. Number one, he's brought 4 goalkeepers. Why we need 4 goalkeepers, I don't know, but what
I
does
think
that
it's.
say about?
I'm glad you brought that up because it's obvious he is not sold on any of them because each and every one of Pochettino's camps has had some different group of keepers. There's always at least one random debutant that no one saw coming. This time it's Chris Brady.
Yeah, Chris Brady, who I occasionally get to talk to people who have played goalkeeper for the U.S. men's national team. I let you figure out who that might be, and that those people don't always rate Chris Brady in terms of how good he might be compared to the rest of the field. So that tilts me away from Chris Brady really being a solution for this. And I do think Matt Turner is still good enough, and if he, now that he's playing regular minutes, it's going to be okay again for him. But there's every reason in the world to maybe widen the pool of players for the U.S. men's national team at goalkeeper. But people don't really talk about goalkeeper. I mean, goalkeepers only. Come on, that's not what we want to talk about. We want to talk about the other positions on the field. Cameron Carter-Vickers. Okay, sure. I never see it, but it is what it is. And you after Reams and Richards, you don't have a lot of center backs that are jumping off the page to be part of this group. So I will give him a pass there.
Shout out to Chris Richards for being involved in Crystal Palace's most successful team ever. Just shout out to him, buttoning up Liverpool last weekend.
Yeah, that's one that stands out for me. Again, McKenzie, Miles Robinson, these guys are auditioning for that backup role. And obviously, look, again, Tim Ream is 112 years old. It would be nice if somebody stepped up and kind of grabbed that position, and we'll see if that's a chance here. I do think, I said it again. I'll say it again. Max Arfston, Poch loves Max Arfston. Loves him. He's going to be in every team he's available for. That's just going to be a thing. Jedi is back. That's good to see. We're excited for that. Midfielders, Brendan Aronson, he's been real fringy, but here he is. Now, part of this is that there just aren't a ton of options and sort of that attacking element. Gio's not ready. He's hurt. And even if he wasn't hurt, would you call him in? I don't know that you would. Weston's back. That's good to see. I like Aiden Morris a lot. Aiden Morris, James Sands, Tanner Tessman, all of these guys, and maybe Christian Roldan if you want to add him to that group. All these guys are sort of, not necessarily solid in the team, but it's interesting they're getting called up in the October window. And, keep in mind that Johnny Cardoso has an injury. That's maybe a factor here. And Tyler Adams is not with this team because his partner's about to have their second child. So he's been excused from this camp. Malik Tillman is there. Once again, he'll have the opportunity to make that spot his own, right? To be the guy who grabs that number 10 or whatever you want to call that role. Diego Luna's here. Yeah, is he going to be a World Cup player? I still think there's some doubt there, but I like him a lot. I like the energy. Forwards, Ajamang, Balogun, Pulisic, Weah, Wright, and Zendejas. Pulisic, everybody knows why he's there. He's going to be the guy. Haji Wright scoring goals at Coventry City. And Pochettino mentioned that specifically. Said he's scoring goals. That's why he's here. And you want guys that are in form. Right? Ajibang has just come back from injury and started his career at Derby County. And he's just a handful. He's not a refined player. He's not a player that is trustworthy every time he's on the field. But I think he's a difference maker just because of how big he is and how difficult he is to deal with for center backs. And I've said this before. I think the fact that he's not refined adds an unpredictability to his game that makes it tougher on center backs. Because
he's like playing poker with a newbie who's just laying bets when it doesn't make any sense. So all the experienced players are like, "What the heck is going on?" And he could even borderline compare him to like a Tasmanian devil. He's just spinning around. The ball goes this way.
Exactly. That's exactly what it's like, Rob. I appreciate that analogy. That is good. Balogun's the man for now. Pepe's hurt, and Balogun would still be the man even if Pepe wasn't hurt and available because Balogun scored the last camp, and we do see it with Balogun. I'd like him to do it again. You're playing against a pretty decent South American team and a team in Australia that I figure is probably going to be low block for most of the game. So have an opportunity to prove something. And Alex Sendejas deserved his opportunity to be back in this team. I do think he has somewhat limited utility in a 90-minute setting against a top-level competition, like in a World Cup, but I don't know that means you don't bring him because, again, he can do some things, and he is, again, a little bit of a difference maker. No Jack McGlynn. That was a player that seemed like Poch was kind of leaning into, but that's an absence here. I don't know, Rob, you have any other thoughts on the group itself?
I'm glad to see that Aiden Morris is back in because I thought that he's been really, really solid. He was one of the best players for Columbus previous to his move to Middlesbrough. He's done well at Middlesbrough, so I'm glad he's back in the group. Interesting to see Ajamang back. We just talked about him. He's a box of tricks, or box of randomness is probably a better way to say it.
You know what he is?
But you're saying that
he's like that drawer. My grandfather had this drawer. My dad had this drawer. I don't know if I have it, but it's like that drawer that has all the random nuts and bolts and screws, but they're not organized. You're just like picking through it. Like, which one do I need?
We've got one, the junk drawer. You got the junk drawer.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's got a junk drawer. I think that's pretty tough. That's right. Jack McGlynn got injured. My apologies. That's why he's not here. I forgot about an injury for Jack McGlynn. So maybe he would be here.
It's interesting that Haji Wright's goals for Coventry were noted, but one Josh Sargent, also one of the leading scorers in the championship, not called in. So interesting to see how that's rated. That could maybe be an athleticism thing. Maybe there's some more speed there that he wants, or just because he's had such a dry spell.
He didn't do it last camp, and maybe service, whatever. But at some point, you just got to score the goals. And again, Balogun did it, right? And Haji Wright's doing it in the club level. Yeah, that is interesting. Now, you mentioned the communication thing, and I wanted to highlight this. Now, Pochettino went on for 6 minutes about this issue after being asked by Henry Bushnell of The Athletic. But I do want to play some of this so that we get a sense of what Pochettino thinks about this question and whether he should be communicating with his players when they aren't called up.
That you don't give explanations to players
and
you don't give explanations to players who are not called into camp.
Exactly.
Why? Why don't you give the explanation?
To which? The first or the second?
Both.
Because I think in my philosophy, in our philosophy, or in the way that I grow, feeling that sport, player no need to know. And if the player need to know, it's because they don't really feel that sport in the way that I feel. That doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. Because you really know when you play why you play, and when you don't play, you also deep down you know why.
I will stop it there, Rob, because that's interesting to me. He is saying, if you don't understand why you're not called, you don't deserve to be called, or you're not at get on my level. Mauricio Pochettino. Now he made sure to say, it's not to say it's right or wrong. You don't feel it the way I feel it, but he's saying, get on my level. Like, and I even beyond explaining it this way about how the player is supposed to feel the game or whatever, I don't care. Like, I don't think players need to get phone calls and coddled over not being called in. And this is also part of that thing he's talked about, breaking up a culture where players were extremely comfortable, where they presumed their place. Okay, I played in the national team for a consistent year. I got called up every camp by Greg Berhalter. I'm just going to be in the national team now. That's just one of the things I do. I'm in the national team. And then a window comes and Pochettino's now in charge and he doesn't call somebody. It's like, why did he call that guy? Well, should he be communicating with that guy who was in every camp under Berhalter or for the last year before Pochettino came in or whatever? No, the national team is not. This is different than the day-to-day relationships you have with club players. Your job is to call the best players, 23, 26, whatever it is, to win the games that are in front of you. Or in Pochettino's case, up to this point, pick the players you want to see because you're trying to build towards the World Cup in 2026. Like, I don't know when we kind of got into this place of, well, he's got to let everybody know what's going on. How deep is that list? If you had one cap over the last 5 years, should he be calling you up and saying, I'm sorry you didn't make the cut this time, buddy, but keep trying? Like, what are we doing there? That's not a thing. And honestly, I don't know. Do the players need this? Do we even know from the player side that they need this from Pochettino or any coach from a national team perspective? You don't get called in. You weren't good enough, or you weren't the right fit in that moment, and you don't deserve an explanation. It is a privilege to play for your national team.
Yeah, it sure is. And it's like being professional. You do your job when you're called, and then if you're not called up, then you got to do better and get called up next time. Just to kind of round up my thoughts before we move on the surprise of the team. This roster seems like it's more well-rounded, less random, let's test out this guy sort of a pick. It seems to be more of a sensical squad.
We're taking this as the first bit of real evidence about who Pochettino might be taking to the World Cup if available, right? Now, again, I think that trio of Morris, Sands, and Tessman, there's still some sandbox things happening there. Like, that's still trying to figure out. I don't know that all three of those guys are really in the picture right now, but there are a lot of play. And again, Tyler Adams is unavailable. Johnny Cardoso is hurt. Maybe he wouldn't be in the team, but he's hurt. It's tough to know when injuries are a factor here as well. Jack McGlynn is hurt, and he's been pretty recently consistent in the group. So there's some evidence that Pochettino likes him. So, but what we know is that he said last month, September, was his last chance to get a look at new players. Tristan Blackman, who is hurt also, by the way, and who knows if he would be in this team. He got a look. First ever caps for the national team. Wow. Okay. He's looking at a 29-year-old center back for the first time. He's not doing that in this camp. This camp is closer to what he would call up if he was trying to win a game against Argentina tomorrow. And so we move, taking as evidence the group that he's got.
This squad will play Ecuador and Austin on the 10th of October and Australia and Colorado on the 14th.